Win Grant comprise the executive committee, and then there are a series of vice presidents with portfolios across different aspects of our work: education and outreach, membership, programs, and then we have a series of section representatives largely associated with different regions of the world, and our executive director is Debbie Luke, who you'll hear from shortly. So our agenda for today, we just made our way through welcomes and introductions. What we'll do next is to approve the minutes from the 2017 members meeting. Then I'll provide a brief update on some of our recent progress. Heather, as treasurer, will talk to us about the financial report and audit report. Debbie will speak to us about some of her vision and priorities and perspective on progress. Then Tanya will share with us a little bit about the Washington, D.C. chapter, who's kind enough to host us here today. And then we can have open discussion and any new business, and then proceed to adjournment. So Merritt, may I turn it over to you for the approval of the members' minutes?
Yes. Hi. I just want to flag that I can't see anything on the GoTo meeting. I'm calling in as well. So just, I don't know if anybody else is having that problem, but it's showing that it's waiting for Miriam Hernandez to unlock the meeting on my end. So perhaps that's just me. But given that, I do want to double check to make sure we have.
To jump in, it's not just you. Oh, now it's unlocking.
Oh,
sorry,
okay. Because I do want to double check that we have a quorum. So Mike and others, if y'all could help. Everybody on the line and in person for our members meeting, it is required that we have at least 30 members of the Society for Conservation Biology in order to have a official members meeting, and definitely in order to vote on anything, including the minutes. I'm seeing 31 people on the call, so I think we have a quorum. But Mike, can you please confirm?
I can confirm. I see 24 attendees or lines on the call, and then I see 10 in the room here in Washington, D.C.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mike. All right, and so yes, our only voting item that we have on the docket for today is the minutes from our 2017 members meeting, and that was held in Cartagena. So the draft minutes for the members meeting has been posted to our online conservation forum, and I think they're now on the screen. Hopefully everybody can see that. And so this is, we're going to proceed. I'm going to actually motion for an approval of the minutes. If you do have any questions or amendments, then we'll open up for discussion. But I'll go ahead, given that we have a quorum, and make a motion to approve the 2017 members meeting minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, thank you, everybody. Motion carries unanimously. Brilliant work. Okay, great. So what I'd like to do now, so thank you, Merritt. So what I'd like to do now is talk a little bit about some of the progress we've made over the past year and a half. So we will first just big picture to remind those of you who may be less familiar with the intricacies of SCB, we have a strategic plan that runs through 2020. And in that plan, there are 5 strategic priorities that we've identified that are designed to advance our mission, which is to advance the science and practice of conserving the Earth's biological diversity. So priority 1, facilitate the creation and dissemination of science. If you are online, if you wouldn't mind muting, please. Thanks. Priority 2, to advance the application of conservation science to management, policy, and education. Priority 3, to empower sections, committees, and working groups and chapters to build local, national, and international capacity. And then lastly, to enhance services to meet current needs. And then lastly, to build organizational capacity to maintain robust economic over the past year and a half, I think we can say tremendous accomplishments on all of these fronts. From the science perspective, we've had the 7 conferences in 2018 with 3,500 attendees, 110 countries. That's in addition, of course, to the success we had in Cartagena last year with the ICCB. We are preparing to launch a new journal, Conservation in Science and Practice, with Mark Schwartz as our editor-in-chief. We've formalized our affiliation with Pacific Conservation Biology. And of course, conservation biology and conservation letters continue to serve as leading positions within the field. We supported 5 new Smith Fellows in 2018 and 5 fellows in September of 2017 as well. Many of our presentations from our conferences were streamed live and have been uploaded and archived for further use. We've been working on a variety of processes to facilitate information exchange with and among the sections, working groups, and chapters, and we have an ongoing process of needs and capabilities assessment with the various SCB groups. From a science to policy and science application perspective, earlier this year we articulated our policy vision, work led by Sarah Reed, articulated in an editorial in Conservation Biology. We've issued a series of policy statements as a society as a whole and in the various entities of the society. We've been working and assessing a variety of ways in which sections, working groups, and chapters can connect and enhance application of science to policy and management, building key partnerships, and underlying all of this has been an effort to establish sort of online forums that can facilitate conversations and connect SCB members to key topics in practice. With respect to our third goal, we've been launching a series of working groups, 3 standing working groups, 3 provisional ones. We've sort of built out this information infrastructure to communicate or facilitate communication. We've sort of streamlined the chapter registration process to make it easier. Built out an online interactive global chapters map, created donate buttons on our website to make it easier for individuals to contribute to groups of particular interest to them, whether sections or working groups or chapters, and launched an annual call for service. And I would encourage any of you who are interested in getting more involved in the society to reach out to me or to Debbie or to the section president in your group to better connect and explore opportunities for getting involved. In terms of being responsive and enhancing services to meet member needs, current and future, we launched a new membership directory and expert database. We've refined our approach to memberships to make them income-based rather than geography-based to enhance inclusivity. We've created new categories of memberships for organizations and for individuals who wish to establish lifetime memberships. And then we've also created individual and corporate friends of SCB categories for folks who are sort of interested in supporting our work but don't consider them consider themselves conservation scientists or practitioners. And then a couple of things that are also important to note. We've established an anti-harassment and sexual violence task force to look into some of the issues that are obviously critical within science and society as a whole. And we've launched a membership recruitment and retention campaign to sort of ensure that folks who were once part of our community but may have drifted away are welcome back. And then lastly, from the sort of priority of building organizational capacity, one thing that I would note is, we've really put a lot of effort into building up our executive office and ensuring that it is well positioned to support and sustain the society as a whole. And with Debbie's leadership and Debbie coming on board since Cartagena, I think we're really made great strides there. And sort of with that leadership from the executive office, we've made great strides in terms of the meeting and event code of conduct policy, ensuring that we have responsible investment standards for our board designated reserve, and also our staff 401k retirement options. We've put a lot of effort into work planning in a way that's supportive of our business plan and budget and strategic plan, invested in high capacity personnel, and then implemented an executive office internship program. And in case you were wondering what our board has been up to, we've been meeting a lot on a monthly basis to sort of work through a lot of the critical issues that we face. And we want to give great thanks to the board and to the executive office for their commitment through that process. And I guess, just on a personal note, before we move on to the financial report and audit report, I've been involved with SCB since 1997. It's basically been my professional home my entire career, and have lived with it through its ups and downs. And I have to say, I'm really excited and pleased with the progress we've made and excited by what the future holds. So I hope that you'll all join me and the board and the executive office in sort of spearheading this sort of next phase of SCB and really rising to the challenges that we face. So with that, I'll turn it over to Heather for the financial report and audit report.
Thanks, Mike. Hi, everyone. I'm Heather DeCalliway. Let's see if I can turn on. There we go. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I should state that I am in a public place, so apologies if there's any background noise. I'd also like to mention that Warren Sander is on the call, and he is SCB's CFO. And Steve Humphrey. Steve, are you on the call? Well, it's possible Steve is. I'm hopeful that he may be. Steve is a member of the investment committee and has served as the trustee of SCB's board designated reserve, which is essentially like SCB's endowment. I'm going to refer to it a lot on this call, and I'm going to refer to it as the BDR. So an acronym to jot down to remember that one. So anyway, both of them are, I'm hoping, on the call, and will be available to answer any specific questions as needed at the end here. So I'd like to start kind of tying to what Mike said, to talk a little bit about 2017, which is the year I'm going to focus on right now with finances, since that's the year that's come to a close, although we're late on the meeting's usually mid-year, so 2018 is about to come to a close. But 2017 is what I'm going to focus on. And 2017 was a year of transition. Dr. Deborah Luke came on board mid-year in June of last year. And And with her coming on board, she's really focused on professionalizing the society. She quickly implemented a plan to get SCB back to the black. For a number of years now, a decade maybe, we've had off and on negative budgets. We've gone into the red by the end of the year, and so her goal is to get SCB sustainable again, and she's planning to do this hopefully within 3 years. So that started in 2018 with an investment budget, and then going into 2020, at which point is kind of a key year for SCB. We'll start a new strategic plan and look at moving in new, different directions. So I think that'll be exciting in 2019, especially getting that together. But the finances all tie into that. And so with all of that in mind, I'd like to start with the first slide. There we go. Yeah, so this is a glimpse of the 2017, the books that were closed for 2017, as well as 2016, although I'm going to focus on 2017. It's useful to maybe see 2016 for comparative purposes. So if I can draw your attention to the revenue lines here, you'll note that SCB's main programs are meetings, our publications, membership, of course, investment income, which I'll talk about in a couple minutes here. And then you see this line of net assets released, and that's in large part our Smith Fellowship program. And then if we jump down to the expenses, similarly, we have the projects where the money was spent. And just a few things to draw your attention to here. The publications is always, of course, a big program for us. Projects below that is in large part the meetings, which 2017 was ICCB 2017 in Cartagena, and that had a net profit of about $92,000. In addition, the Smith Fellowship program is under projects. Below that, and that's about a $1.3 million program. Below that are the groups, the SCB groups, which again Mike touched upon, but here is where SCB is expanding its reach globally, topically, and locally through groups. So a sizable expenditure there on the projects and programs by all of those groups. And then below here we see the support services. And if we were to add all of this up and take a percentage, this would be SCB's overhead, which is about 6.6% of expenses, which is quite low for an organization of SCB's size. And then finally, I said I would loop back to the investment income, which I'm doing now. That was sizable, back up in the revenue, $370,000 in net gains on our BDR, Board Designated Reserve. We did have a bit of an operating deficit in 2017, which we were expecting, again, an additional year that SCB had. And so we did in 2018 draw from the Board Designated Reserve to cover the operating shortfall. But regardless, and with all of that included, we still had the 90,000 or 89,000 down here at the bottom was the bottom line on SCB's finances. So we were in the black, in large thanks to keeping expenses down and sizable return on our investments. Yes, please, thank you. Next slide. And so this slide, SCB's finances are audited annually. This is an internal audit. We hire a firm just to be sure that everything is as it should be and all legal, following all legal procedures. So the most important thing coming out of the audit is that it was a clean audit. The auditors didn't find any significant concerns. Just a few things to note, a big change in our assets, and that is a timing and a renewal of the Smith Fellowship program. The expenses did decrease, and again, I think in large part because of the transitional year. And finally, as I mentioned before, SCB does have a very low overhead. So all of that is good news on the audit. Next slide, please. And SCB, SCB's board approved. This is something we've talked about a good deal in previous years. We did approve a socially and sustainable responsible investment policy for SCB. So this is how our board designated reserve is invested. The policy in total is here, but also can be found on our website, and the address is here if folks want to look at it. But a couple key points to pull out of this is that 90% of our holdings conform to the Dow Jones Sustainability Index. The additional 5% is due to changes, sales. If a fund changes, we have some time to move out of it. It's kind of a transitional piece that just gives us a little flexibility for sales and buying. And then the other piece is that we do exclude from certain sectors, such as the tobacco, gambling, weapons, companies engaged in extraction, exploration, production, manufacturing, or refining of fossil fuels. So again, we're excited about this policy, and the good news is that our BDR at the time that we did this full assessment was largely in compliance with the policy already. So we put this policy in place, but we were already there. And finally, the last slide is taking a bit of a closer look at our BDR. Here you can see the tan line, and this is the cost basis of the BDR. So this is the money actually spent on buying and selling entities in the portfolio. And then the portfolio growth, the blue line, shows the earnings on our BDR. So as you can see, the BDR has grown over time. Again, it's a snapshot. It does date before 2007, but here is 2007 to almost the present, end of November. So this does come current into 2018. And the end of 2017, the BDR was kind of at its peak at 2.4 million. I mentioned we have withdrawn, made a couple withdrawals from the BDR approved by the board and by the budget, and currently sits at about 1.9 million. There's also been a bit of a downturn in the market, which is also reflected here. But all in all, still strong at 1.9 million. And as you can see, it's up still substantially from 2007 and into the current year. And so lastly, again, I mentioned this at the beginning, since we are at the end of 2018, we of course don't have anything closed. Our books aren't closed at 2018 by any means. But at present, as we've looked at our finances quarterly, we see that we are on track, that we're tracking with the board approved budget for 2018. So that's good news, and we'll have a lot more information about that at the next members meeting. At this point, I'd like to open it up in case there's any questions.
I think actually, Heather, let's hold questions until we go through all of the presentations, and then we'll loop back around. Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Thanks, Heather. And so with that, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Debbie Luke, our Executive Director.
That was a big transition. Thank you. Hi, everybody. So thank you, Heather, very much for that. And I also would like to recognize all of the board, the section leaders, working group leaders, chapter leaders. All of you have been working hard this year. We've had a lot going on this year and a lot of growth. So kudos to everybody. And if you happen to be sitting next to somebody who does that, kudos to them for working on that. They're clapping here. So I am going to just talk for a few moments and give you an update, basically the state of the society, if you will. Just a little bit of an overview on our membership trends. Looking at the top graph on your left, we are looking at membership month by month. We typically have a peak in the summer when we have our conferences or congresses, and then it kind of dwindles down again. But you'll see if you look in December, which is actually the end of November, rating on there, we are still a little bit higher than we were last year. As Mike mentioned, we are implementing a membership recruitment and retention campaign. This is kind of new for SCB, so we're going to be enlisting all of your help on that. We think this is a really important thing to really grow our society and grow our communications and collaborations now that we have these new tools that we're going to be talking about. The graph on the bottom shows you the breakdown of membership within the sections themselves. So you'll see that there's North America has the highest amount of members in it, but then the other sections are all kind of grouped in the same general area there. When we look at chapters, we are growing our chapters. We're at 37 right now with several that are potentially going to be new chapters. We did reorganize our chapter registration program last year, and that is going to be happening. Can I ask you to mute your computers, please? We are going to do the chapter registration annually again, and that will be coming out shortly. So we'll be working with those chapters that may not have got through it last year, and we'll be able to continue that this year. And working groups, we have a variety of working groups. As Mike mentioned, we have a few new ones that were approved as working groups, and we have several new provisional working groups that have come up in the last several months. And there's a lot of potential interest in this. So if any of you are interested in joining any of the working groups, particularly the provisional ones, they have to meet a certain criteria of number of members that would be in there before they can be approved as an official working group. So please look at those topics, think about it, and certainly reach out to us, go onto our website, and you can connect there and become involved with that. And then our committees, we have several committees within the society. Some are board level committees and some are society level committees. Again, if you're interested, that call for service did just go out. We will be doing a call for service to our membership every year in the fall. We did it in November of this year. We're going to hopefully do it a little bit earlier next year, and we will just continue to do this annually. This is a really important way for you to contribute to your society. It's a really important way to have your voice heard and to make a difference, not only in the work that you do day to day in your conservation field, but as a society as a whole. And it's a great way to network with others. So I strongly encourage you to think about really expanding that horizon on yours if you can and become involved with us. A couple new benefits, excuse me, that we have launched this year. I know many of you have been very involved in the Conservation Connections online community. We have a general forum one that's been pretty busy. We have ICCB that's been taking off. We have several for sections, and we're in the process of launching one for every single section, every single working group, every single chapter. These are very powerful communities. They have workspaces on them that you can use to do your work of your group. But they also, within the sections, automatically connect to all the members in your section. So it's not just necessarily your section board. You can have a community for that to do your business, but it also has the capacity for you to communicate directly with every single member of your section and post different things to them. So this is a really neat way to have those conversations. We also have the new membership directory. You can go on there right now if you're a member. You should log on. You should update all of your information. You should figure out what you want to put on your profile. You don't have to have your profile public. You have that option not to. But the more you have public, the more people will be able to connect with you and see what you're doing. And this leads directly into our expertise database. I've been on a lot of visits this last year and talking with a lot of different partners and potential partners. And many times people talk to me about, well, we could really use an expert in X field, or we really need somebody who has experience in this. Do you have anybody that you can connect us to? And this expertise database is an excellent way for people to be able to go online and find people who have experience in there. This has direct applications to policy, to different efforts in the field, to educational programs. So please go on, update your profile, and get it ready to go so people can find you. And you can use it also to search for others. Of course, we have our publications. Mike mentioned those two. We have our two flagship publications, Conservation Biology and Conservation Letters. Both of these are extremely relevant peer-reviewed journals that are ranked very highly. A couple of key things to talk about here. Conservation biology, as most of you know, addresses issues that are more ecosystem-based, specific geographic regions, diverse approaches to analyses and problem solving. The articles also transcend particular ecosystems. They can even be bigger than that. Conservation letters are a little bit different. They're empirical and theoretical research with immediate implications. They're more time sensitive and so forth. Let me go back to this for a second and talk to you about that. Of those two journals, those are both very highly reviewed. If you look at all the different types of conservation journals there are out there, and this is our third quarter metrics, you'll see that conservation biology and conservation letters are number 2 and number 3 of all the globes of journals for conservation. So this is something to be proud of. These are excellent journals to be associated with in the society, and as SCB members, you do get a discount for publishing in there. You still have to go through all the rigorous review. There's no guarantee. There's no extra plus because you're a member that you get to be published in there. You still go through all of the rigorous review, but you do get a discount for it. But what we're also very excited about is our new publication coming out. This is going to come out in January. Mark Schwartz is our chief editor-in-chief. Conservation Science and Practice. And this is a very different niche right now. There really isn't another journal out like this. And this is really trying to put together conservation science and put it into the applied field of practice. And you can put papers in there that are going to have smaller sample sizes and might not have to be like ecosystem scope. It can be smaller in scope, could be smaller sample size. And just as importantly, it's going to be important to publish what's working in applied science, but it's also going to be important to publish what's not, so you don't make the same mistakes in there. So this is an excellent new venue to start thinking about new ways to publish. We've got an amazing response. We were afraid that we were going to have to kind of beg for articles to come in with a new journal, and we are overwhelmed. Our editor-in-chief has actually taken money out of his own pocket to hire an assistant to help him with the articles. So this is a great new publication that you should definitely check out. Mike also mentioned the congresses. 2018 was a stellar year for SCB. This is the most section congresses that we've had. Every one of our sections, except the Africa section, had a meeting in their section. So it was a very busy summer moving across the whole globe. I went to several of them, and they were all amazing. I mean, it's just to see and meet all the different people across the world and see all the work that they're doing. These were all very well-run congresses. And of course, we have ICCB 2019 coming up, and now you should be making your arrangements to go. I've been to Kuala Lumpur twice. I just got back from there last week. Again, doing another site visit, and this is going to be an excellent venue to have a Congress. It's rich in diversity, rich in culture in the area. The venue is excellent. The city is very dynamic, as you can see on this slide. The convention center on the right bottom picture there is nestled in the big city with Petronas Towers. There's a huge mall there. There's plenty to do in the area. It's actually very easy to get to. There's a lot of walkways that you see here because it is hot. You are in the tropics. It's going to be in July. It is very hot there. So a lot of their walkways are enclosed like this and air conditioned to get from one part of town to another. There's also very convenient travel ways to get to and from the airport and the venue. They don't have Uber, they do have Grab, and it's excellent. It works very well, so you should download that before you go. And then the hotels that we've selected, we've picked a variety of them. Some are a little bit higher end, some are very reasonable. All of them are multi-room shares. You are in Malaysia, so the costs of them are reasonable no matter which level you go to there. And they're all very, very nice hotels. We've seen all of them. So definitely start making your plans now. It is excellent. I just went there. It was less than $1,000 for my round trip ticket. So not a bad price to go, and the program for the conference itself is shaping out to be extremely strong. So we've got a lot of surprises in store for you. So I'm now going to turn this over to Tanya. She is from our SCB and DC chapter. I'm going to switch over. The camera is on you.
Okay. Hello, everyone online, everyone in the room. So I'm the SCB and DC chapter president, and I've been the president for well, I've been in a leadership role for about 4 years, president for 3 of those years. We have in the room one other member of the board, Eula Kapitanakos. She's a member at large. We have a former member, Rachel. So just to kind of give you a quick overview, we sort of represent a small sample size of our membership. So I work full-time for the federal government, and so does Eula. 3 of our other members work for NGOs, and 1 works for George Mason University. So according to one of our surveys, we discovered that we actually have about the same breakdown. Most of our members are either federal government or NGO representatives. One of the other things that we do is we annually work on a strategic and annual plan. So this plan is intended to build intended to kind of reflect the overall SCB's plan, strategic plan, and what we try to do is build local capacity for biodiversity conservation. And in order to do that, we have several goals that we look through. We highlight 3 of them here, and we actually have an opportunity to change them as we review them every year. The first one is to create partnerships and collaborative relationships. So in order to do that, we organize speaker events, panel events, we cross-post events with other local groups, and we participate in local advocacy as we can, as time permits. And our aspirational goal is to memorialize all of this activity in some form, either as a white paper or as a policy paper, but we haven't been able to do that recently. As another goal, we actually organize professional development and networking events. And actually, Joe Burns is present here. He was one of the people spearheading this in another federal agency. What we try to do is have mentoring events and resume writing events. These typically have a lot to do with people's career development, and they are very well attended. And that's really emblematic of the culture here in DC. We tend to have a lot of happy hours and a lot of professional development. So I think the chapter really speaks to the culture of this city. And most importantly, I think we like to work with the SCB Executive Office and the North America section, and we do make a point of meeting with the Executive Office every year and to go over the strategic plan and make sure that we are in line with the overall strategic planning of the organization. So this is an example of that. We met with the Executive Office this year. We call this our Mix and Mingle event, and we invited our chapter members to attend and to listen to Nate and to the other staff members here, and to talk about the benefits of being an SCB member and to learn about our chapter. So in terms of our guiding timeline, we have the first few months to strategize and think over our strategic plan, to register our chapter on the SCB website, to do the sort of engagement with the Executive Office, and then to finalize the plan. And then the rest of the year is intended for hosting events and conducting outreach, talking to our partners and interested parties, and seeing what we can accomplish in the year. One of the things that we've focused on is river conservation, and we actually thought of working on this early in 2017. We looked at the Department of Environment and Energy, DC's local government wildlife action plan, and we discovered that they have identified multiple riparian areas on the Anacostia River for conservation priority. So we decided, let's do the same. Let's see what the local government is doing and see how we can help. And serendipitously, we discovered that other organizations had the same thought. I mean, the National Park Service and local governments and other NGOs put together a consortium, and they strategized around the 100th year of the Anacostia Park and the 200th birthday of Frederick Douglass, and they made 2018 the year of the Anacostia. So all of the work that's being done on the Anacostia is really to make it, to restore it back to a condition where you can fish and swim in it legally by 2025. So we've been very much aware of these activities and create events and sponsor and support events that are helpful to the Anacostia River and restoration efforts. So some of the key partners that we work with in order to make these events happen is the Executive Office with Joe Burns, who's here, Anacostia River Keeper. You see Trey Sherrard, he's one of the boat tour that helps us a lot with understanding the issues on the Anacostia. And Krista Schleier, who's up here as well, she's a local author who recently published a book on the Anacostia, and Eula's worked a lot with her to help organize some of the events around her work. We also worked a lot with DC Audubon, who do a lot of advocacy work, so we've actually contributed to a paper, or we've asked the North American section to review and review the work supported. We just heard that zipper, just so you know. So we work with them to support other local NGOs and change the direction, hopefully, of the development plans for the RFK Stadium here in the DC area to consider those wildlife habitats in their recreational infrastructure. We also worked a lot with the Reliable Tavern. One of the owners of this local venue is also a professor at a local university, George Mason. And so we try to make the connections where we can with conservation practitioners. Oh, please mute your line if you can. We can hear some shuffling. All right, so in the first 2 quarters of this year, as I said before, we did interact with SCB Executive Office in January. We highlighted some of the Earth Day cleanup events in the district, so in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. We hosted a Women in Science and Conservation panel, and we held a sustainability networking event at George Mason University. We also initiated fundraising for the NACCB conference. This was through a GoFundMe site, and it was a new thing for us, so we had a few stumbling blocks, but we made it through. This was the picture of one of the cleanup events on the Anacostia around Earth Day. This is the Women in Science panel. One of our board members was very good at finding these people. They were just amazing speakers, and we used Reliable Tavern as our venue, and we had a lot of a good turnout. For the second part of the year, we focused a lot more on the Anacostia River. We did a boat tour with Krista and Trey. Krista was able to read the excerpts from her book, and very enriching experience learning about the problems on the river and how we can help. We also did a happy hour and a trivia event at the Reliable Tavern again. This was also to support fundraising events. We were able to get a percentage of proceeds from that event to support attendees at the NACCB conference. So that was really the highlight of our work this year, attending the NACCB conference, because we were able to consolidate a lot of the efforts of local practitioners in local government and in NGOs, universities, and to have them all at the conference and present on their work at the local level here. What came out of that conference was the idea that we actually could have a conference locally specific to the Anacostia watershed. And that's what we're going to try to work on in the coming years. I can hear some breathing. If you don't mind muting your line. Okay, so we can hear a lot. So that's the idea, that we would actually have a local conference focused entirely on the Anacostia watershed, and we look forward to working with our partner Anacostia River Keeper on that as well. I mentioned to you that we did some advocacy work through DC Audubon. So they spearheaded the initiative to respond to a local developer on the local RFK Stadium. And so we were responsive to that and supported that effort. And we hope to hear more from them. I think the next plan is to have these groups meet and talk more about how to re-engage with the developers. We've been working sort of remotely on that, but I think the idea is to have a meeting and see what we can do. And in December, we've supported the book launch for Krista, and there's actually a scientist engagement happy hour happening today at the Rolling Book Tavern again. So we're very, very consistent. And this is a photo of us at the boat tour, which was very well attended. People loved it. And if you want to reach out to us, we have our designated email address. We have a Google listserv which you can join. We can add you to that. And we also have a Facebook page you can take a look at.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Excellent. Back to you, Mike.
Great, thanks. And yeah, thanks again for joining us here, and congratulations on all the great things. It's really exciting to see, and just an illustration of all the fantastic work that our chapters are doing around the world. So with that, I'd like to open it up for questions. And so let's see if we can do it with sort of raising hands type of thing. I'm not sure where we have that, but if you can open your line, if you have a question, and then I will, I'll call out to folks who have questions. We have one in the room, Rachel.
Yeah. So I have a question about how SCB supports local chapters. So I remember I was on the board a couple years ago. It was a small grants opportunity that we tried for, but it was $500. But the process was very complex and such that the cost benefit for us of time to put into the application versus the amount of funding wasn't worth it. So I'm wondering if that's evolved and changed to support local chapters more.
Debbie, do you want to speak to that, or should I? I mean, the short answer to the question is that we're in a deficit budget situation, and so the society's capacity overall to support chapters is limited at the moment. We're certainly looking for funding opportunities that we could use in a targeted way to support capacity building at the local level, and certainly individual sections have some mechanisms, but it varies by geography to geography.
I'll add to that just a little bit. It's not just chapters. It's, as you saw in the budget, we are trying to get back to the black in 3 years. So we have cut our budget as low as we can in every capacity, including sections who are also looking for funding from the society. So it's all of our groups. We're all feeling it, but we're all working towards looking at new ways. You mentioned the GoFundMe. This is a new thing for us. This is a potential fundraising idea. We have made investments in a couple of areas that could be revenue generating sources. So we've brought in a director of philanthropy and a director of conferences, small literacy conferences and events, to help turn those into profitable enterprises for us so that we can then share those funds back out with our community. So with fundraising, we're working on a variety of things, just only one person, but looking at different ways to help maximize your ability to fundraise and increase your section or your chapter or your working group's ability to reach out and raise funds too.
Okay, thanks. Then have another, Eva, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you. As the president of one of our working groups, I would say our biggest hurdle is lack of communication and support from the executive office staff, unfortunately. And we've been struggling with that for a couple of years. And I wonder, I mean, obviously I'm hearing, we're having some budget difficulties, but I'm wondering if that very small overhead that was quoted of around 6% or something like that is maybe not a good thing. Maybe that's a bad thing if it's sacrificing customer service to our members and our working groups and potentially sections. And so I'm hoping that going forward, as you explore budgets, you'll consider expanding that so that you can get more staff or more hours or higher wages or whatever you need so that if I send an email, I get a response.
Yeah, so I'll turn it over to Debbie in a second. I mean, I guess what I would say is it sounds like a conversation that makes sense to have offline in terms of understanding the particulars of what the issue is and how the options for managing it. I think there's sort of different mechanisms that are trying to be brought to bear and different aspirations for efficiency in terms of streamlining communication and sort of creating different mechanisms that can support responsiveness. I think at the same time, it may make sense to think about how to clarify roles and responsibilities so that there's clarity on the various things that the executive office is doing and what exactly falls in whose court, so that it's going to the right place and things like that. So let me turn it over to Debbie in case she has anything else to add.
No, I think that's right. I mean, we have to balance what we spend on staffing versus on other areas. And at this point, we and the board have made the decision not to increase staffing any further than the positions that were already originally there in the next 3 years, while we are trying to build and increase our revenue sources as we go forward. And part of that is membership recruitment too. That's a big part of it. So that's part of this. And I'm sorry to hear you say that, Eva, because I've been CC'd on a lot of the messages going back and forth with you and the staff. So let's talk about that offline. But it is important to recognize that we're really riding a fine balancing line of where we put our funds and not.
Let's see. Other questions scrolling through. Mike Vandeman, do you have a question?
Do you hear me?
Yes.
I got 2 questions. Is the online forum screened? Because I've had posted to it and nothing showed up.
It is moderated.
There should be some indication of that somewhere. Also, I
believe that's in the code of conduct, Mike. I don't know the details, but we'll make that clear.
Yeah, because I can't imagine why. Also, I wonder if anybody has ever done a study of rejected papers, because I've tried publishing in several of the journals, and I always get rejected, and the reasons given are always non-scientific, not related to science whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
For example, style or something like that.
Mm-hmm. So
I've gone to the library and read all the books on how to write a scientific paper, and none of them address this kind of, whatever the editors are doing.
Mm-hmm. So a couple of thoughts on that, Mike. So certainly we I know that the editors of the journal take a careful look at acceptance rates and projections to ensure that there's equity or as equitable and as possible in the peer review process. And that's one of the reasons that our journals have moved to double blind, or at least ConBio has moved to a double blind review. And then just more generally from a process standpoint, happy to note that to the publications committee of the board, but in general, there is a clear firewall between the professional staff and the board on one side, and editorial responsibility on the other. So we do not engage in the particulars of any editorial of any manuscript decision. In general, it's just sort of ensuring that there's thoughtful consideration and professionalism on the part of our editors as a whole.
But without looking at the rejected papers, you really have no idea.
Again, Mike, we don't get into the particulars of that, and that's not our responsibility as either staff or board. Again, happy to talk about that offline and flag it as something for the publications committee to speak to. I see a couple of additional things in the chat box. So Brooke asked about working group funding in 2019 and beyond. Again, the our capacity, given our financial situation, to provide support from unrestricted revenues to working groups or any other entity is extremely limited at this time. Restricted funds or dedicated funds or earmark funds is a completely separate question. And so, we do have the donate buttons, which is a modest but important step in the right direction in terms of targeted funding. We encourage SCB entities to do fundraising on their own in the name of the society or using the society brand name for society related purposes. And we are actively looking for resources that can support programmatic priorities of the society of all stripes. So I would sort of, rather than focus on the sort of unrestricted outlays from core budget, I think the opportunity space is really around targeted fundraising, either for the group, unrestricted or restricted, on behalf, by group members and in coordination with the executive office.
The one thing I will add to that, Mike, is we are sending out an end of the year survey to all of our groups, the boards of our groups. That'll be going out by Friday of this week. And it's really important that you think about the questions in there. It's a short survey, but we really want some concise bullet point answers. They don't have to be long, but they do need to be really thoughtful. What we're looking for is what your current capacity is, what you're doing in your working groups, sections, chapters, and committees to advance those strategic priorities that we talked about. And Tanya just gave you some great examples from this chapter of what they're doing, but also what the needs are going forward for your groups to maximize that. And needs, I know everybody's going to say we need money and we need probably people, but what else is there for that? And if you had those, what are your top 3 resources or professional development or other things that you need, and what would you use them for to accomplish it? So don't just list the needs, but what would you use them for specifically moving forward? Because we're trying to prioritize, assess capacity, assess needs, and then prioritize. So you'll be getting that survey at the end of this week. Thank you very much for filling it out.
And the goal is to not identify sort of group by group, but to identify emergent shared strategic priorities, because that will be where the opportunities lie and where the efficiencies lie in reaching out to donors and identifying or targeting resources. It's sort of in that shared space. And then, let's see, I think there was one more question, targets and priorities. So yes, there are defined targets. Some of them are qualitative, some of them are quantitative. We do assess progress against them, and the reporting on that would be in the 2016-2017 annual report, which came out in the summer or spring, and then in the forthcoming 2018 report. And this is an evolving process as we sort of increasingly professionalize the executive office and get smarter about what we're trying to achieve and tracking progress against that. And so I think increasingly over time will be even more performance-based and data evidence-based in our approach or response to activities. In the interest of time, I'd like to transition at this point to new business. Again, if you have further questions, feel free to reach out to Debbie and her team, and they can find the appropriate folks, whether it's on the board or chapters or sections or working groups or executive office to respond to it. And so I guess it's just sort of open it up for any new business that folks might want to raise. Okay, I see no new business in the room. I hear no new business on the phone. So seeing none and hearing none, I would like to adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for staying up late. Thank you all for getting up early. Thank you all for joining remotely and having more screen time, because I know that's what you all wanted. I hope you had a wonderful 2018 and you have a great holiday season. season's greetings from all of us. Thank you again to the executive office, to the board, and to all of the volunteers who've made the society as successful as it is. I look forward to seeing you in Kuala Lumpur. So thanks very much. Have a great night. Morning. Day.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.